What is paper-mache paste? How do you make it? What's the best paste recipe? Paper-mache paste is a highly scientific and secret formula that's used to bond layers of newspaper together to create a solid object. And no one's known the secret until now.
What you want? What you want?
No, there's really nothing to paper-mache paste. It is very, very easy in its most basic form or most basic recipe. You already have everything you need right in your home to make a quick batch and start playing with. There's real no secret about it, but there are several different recipes out there. Get questions all the time, what's the best, or yada yada. And in my opinion, there really is no best paper-mache paste recipe. It really just depends on who you are and what you're doing, and whether your mache is going to go outside, whether it's staying inside. There's different recipes that apply to each different type of thing you're doing, and I recommend trying all the different ones out there and seeing which one you like best. But really, the basic paper-mache paste is just this, and I'm going to show you guys real quick how simple it is to make, and you can start today. I mean, you've got everything you need inside the house. So a basic standard recipe is really just flour and water. That's it. That's all you need. Flour and water. Now I'm going to add a little salt. The reason I add salt is to help prevent mold. Now there's some people out there who will add like tablespoons of bleach or whatever to their paste recipe. I don't like I don't like using bleach. I just stick with salt. I don't really have mold issues. Mold issues too come from a moisture issue. Once I'm done strip macheing something, it immediately goes under a fan and starts to dry. So anyway, let's make a batch of paste. And this is just a small batch for example, so you guys know what you're looking for. If I was going to make an actual batch to create something, it would be much more than this. So I got a little bit of flour, a little bit of kosher salt. I always use kosher salt, and water. I add the water to the flour, and then we mix it up. And there you go. There's one little batch of paper-mache paste. It's literally that easy. You can start today with this simple recipe and start making stuff. I mean, truly that's all you need. That's what I first started when I was playing around with, and then advanced on from there. But this truly is paper-mache paste in its simplest form. Now there's several different recipes that are out there for paper-mache paste. Paper-mache paste ranges from the very basics, which is just flour, water, and salt, like you just saw. It ranges from that. You can do flour, water, and glue. You can use white glue like Elmer's glue or school glue or PVA glue. You can use wood glue. I've seen people who use wallpaper paste as well. There are people who just simply use water and glue. They'll do a 50-50 mixture of water and glue, and they'll do it with white glue or wood glue or the PVA glue. There's also people out there that just mix water and wallpaper paste together as well for their paper-mache paste. I mean, really, it's up to you on what you want to use and what you're doing. I mean, if your projects really are going to stay inside and they're not going to go outside, and you're working on things that are going to be inside the house, there's really not any need for the expense of a wood glue. A gallon like this of wood glue is $20, $22, and you can get white glue much cheaper. I mean, for that matter, if you're going to just have stuff being in the house, you wouldn't even use glue. Just the basic water and flour is good enough. It will dry up and it'll hold together and make a bond, and you can paint it and do everything else you do with anything else. It's really preference. I mean, it's an argument all the time that the flour is what creates the mold in your paper-mache and different things like that, and that's technically not true. Mold is a moisture issue. I mean, you can get just about anything to mold. Just an example, there's some people who make their paste with water and then just drywall compound and some glue. That works out well too. But by saying that if you eliminate the flour, you're going to eliminate a mold problem, that's not true. It just really depends on the conditions, and if you got moisture left in your product, it didn't get dried before you sealed it or painted it. If you keep it stored in a basement that's damp and dark, you're going to have mold growth. It's no different than the rooms in your home. I mean, most houses got sheetrock on them, and there's no flour in sheetrock. And if it gets damp and moist and dark, that sheetrock will grow mold. Wood will grow mold. It's just the conditions that it's in. So it's not necessarily the flour that's in the paste that creates the mold. It's more to do with moisture still being in your product, or somehow moisture gets introduced to your finished product, and then it's just stored in a condition where it's dark, you've got moisture, and it just creates the food for mold to grow on. Personally, the mache paste recipe that I use, you can find that recipe in the beginners, in Paper-Mache Basics on the site. There's a recipe for that, but my recipe that I use, without going through a whole other video tutorial on that, is just water, flour, wood glue, and salt. I guess the best way for me to describe it is nowadays, I mean, my recipe is, as I've used it in different ways, and I'm always changing things, trying to see what works better or what doesn't work as good anymore. It's like if I put a cup of flour in, I put 2 cups of glue in. If I put 2 cups of flour in, I put 4 cups of glue in. I have a 2-to-1 ratio between my glue and my flour on my mache paste recipes. And of course I add salt to them all the time, and then enough water to get it to, everybody refers as a pancake consistency. A lot of times mine will be a very thin pancake consistency. You can see that because as in my videos, when I apply, you'll see it run quite a bit. And sometimes it's thicker. I'm horrible anymore when it comes to my paste. I'm very lazy. I don't sit down and really measure things out much anymore when it comes to the paste for my strip mache. I just dump some flour in, I dump some glue in, and I start adding water. Put salt, and then I just start adding water until it's a consistency that I like. It's not really rocket science. There's a lot of you guys out there, I know you want specific cup amounts. The best that I can give you, like I said, if I do 1 cup of flour, I'll do 2 cups of glue, and then add water until I get a thin pancake batter consistency, and that's pretty much it. But other people ask about how to store it and how long it keeps. Your flour and water recipe like this, if you're going to make a batch that's just flour and water, you just really want to make enough of a batch that you're going to use the whole thing up in your project when you're doing it right then. Just enough that you've got so you can complete your project, let your project dry, and then go rinse your bowl out. flour and water like this does not stay well. Even if you refrigerate it, no matter what you do, this will eventually mold. It just will. It'll go bad. The salt helps it last longer. But like I said, just like this, make just enough to get your project strip mached and then move on. Now, that being said, like everything else, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Take what I say when I do these videos, and I'm trying to be as helpful as I possibly can. There may be some instances where things last longer or not. I'm just telling you the things that I know, that I experienced, and the things that I've done. For me, my mache paste, like I said, my recipe is the wood glue, water, salt, and flour. I keep my paste in this. This was a container that had a bunch of double bubble gum. I think we bought it as part of stuff to mix in for Halloween treats to give away. But I simply keep my paste in this. It doesn't go in the garage. It doesn't go in the garage. It doesn't go in the refrigerator. As you can see, this is how I keep it. I keep this at room temperature. I don't store this in the garage. I make pretty good sized batches with this, and I always have mache paste left over. I just put the lid back on the top of it and continue on. I don't really have mold issues with this recipe, and I don't know if because it's the glue. I don't know if I don't know if it's because I keep a lid on it or if it's the salt that I added to it. But I mean, you can see there's a buildup, and this is, you know, that buildup on the side there, guys. I've been using this particular bucket for going on 2 years now. I've never cleaned the sides of it. There's no mold growing on the sides of it. Anything that you see that's like blue in there is fibers from paper towels that I've stuck in there. And this recipe keeps for a long time. But I use it. I'm always in this. I mean, I'm macheing something once a week or every week, so I'm either running out or I'm making more, storing it. It doesn't sit around for weeks on end without being touched. I think the longest I've ever let my mache paste go was 2 weeks. 2 weeks to 2.5 weeks that I didn't actually touch this, and I didn't make a project. When I opened it up, it was still good. So, like I said, I don't know if it's the area. I mean, we have high humidity here. It does get hot, but I do my projects inside the house. I'm in an air-conditioned environment. I'm in a weather-controlled environment. That may add to it as well. But if you just keep your mache paste in a container that you can put a lid on, it will keep for a while, and you won't have to worry about it. I do recommend, even with the recipe that I use, if you're not macheing all the time, really try to keep your batches down to a size where if you're going to sit down and do a pumpkin, or you're going to do a head, or whatever it is, and when you're doing your strip mache, that you have just enough paste in here to get you through that project or that layered step, and that way it's pretty much empty when you're finished, and then you won't have to worry about your paste going bad or mold going bad. But to sit here and tell you the best paper-mache paste recipe, if I were to say the recipe I use is the best, I mean, I'd be lying to you, because there's so many different things you can do with it, and it just really depends on what you're working on and the project you're doing and what works best for you. However, the one thing I know I do to fight off against mold is I add kosher salt, and I add quite a little bit of salt to my paste. And I've seen people post on the internet that if you put salt in it, it creates a problem and things break down. And you know, I can't say that that's true, because I use salt all the time, and I haven't seen any problems with my projects. And I've got some of my things that I've built for Halloween that are on their 6th year now. Been out in the weather and everything else, and I haven't had any issues with them. So I use salt. I know it's not going to hurt me. I stay away from products like bleach and things like that, because I don't wear gloves. I'm always just sticking my hand straight in it. And that's another thing I do want to point out. Some of these things, the brand of flour you use, the type of glue you use, you may have skin irritations, reactions to that stuff, depending on your body type. So you may get into this, and you may have. A friend of mine posted on Facebook where he had a rash, an itchy rash going on, and had asked if anybody ever had the problem. I hadn't had the problem, but obviously something that he had in this paste was irritating the skin. So the best thing I can tell you, if you do have issues or you have skin that irritates very easily, you might go out and buy some gloves and use your paste with gloves on. It keeps stuff from gunking up on your hands, especially if you don't like nastiness on your fingertips and things like that. I get a pair of gloves and use those. Just get some thin latex gloves. That'll work great. Also, to warn you guys as well, anybody that if you use wood glue and you're sticking your hands in this, after a couple hours or so, you'll notice that your fingernails turn yellow. Yeah, mine turned yellow, and I was like, oh no, what I'm going to do? But all it really was thin layers of the paste was drying on my fingernails, and all I had to do was grab it and pull it, and it just peeled right off. So it wasn't staining my fingernails. I thought it was, but it wasn't. It was just the paste drying up on it. So anyway, for all you beginners out there, I hope this helps out a little bit. Like I said, if you want to know, see a video tutorial on how I make my paste, just flip back up top to Paper-Mache Basics. And in that Paper-Mache Basics, there's a video in there that goes over the recipe that I use to make this Paper-Mache paste. And it's the one I use. If you want to use the same thing I use, go find that one, have a look at it, and it tells you exactly how I make it. If you don't want to use my recipe, that's fine, and no sweat off my back. There's 1,000 of them out there. But if you want to get started today, just to play around and experiment with this whole paper-mache idea and start creating things, really the only thing you need to start as far as making paste is water, glue, and salt. It's that simple, it's that easy. Water, glue, and salt, that'll make a paste and it'll work. Anyway, take some of this information, go get nasty, and have some fun.